Bro, I need you to stop scrolling for a second and actually listen to me. You are not broke because you're lazy. You are not broke because you didn't grind hard enough, didn't wake up at 5 a.m., didn't do enough push-ups, didn't want it bad enough. You are broke, or you feel like you're losing ground every single month. Because the entire setup, the rent, the grocery bill, the gas, the clothes, the car payment, everything around you is engineered to keep you exactly one paycheck behind. Permanently. Forever. On purpose. And the part that should genuinely scare you, most people feel this. Most people know something is off, and then they go back to scrolling, watch somebody else talk about it for 12 minutes, feel that little emotional hit, and do absolutely nothing different. I was that person, for longer than I want to admit. My name is Jonathan. I'm 27, born and raised in Miami, and this video is me telling you what I wish somebody had sat me down and said years ago, before I wasted time thinking the problem was me. Sit down, we're going to be here for a minute. Let me start local, because I'm not going to talk about the economy the way they do on CNN, with some anchor in a suit sitting in a studio somewhere who hasn't worried about a grocery bill in 20 years. I'm from Miami, and if you know Miami, the real Miami, not the one on Instagram, you know exactly what I'm about to describe. Not the Art Basel Miami, not the I just moved down from New York and I work remote Miami that gentrified half the city in 2 years. I'm talking about the Hialeah Miami, the Opelika Miami, the Little Havana Miami. My whole family is in one apartment and nobody's complaining about it because that's just how it is, Miami. That Miami. So let me give you the actual numbers for this city, not my opinion, data. To live comfortably as a single person in Miami right now, just you, no kids, nothing fancy, just comfortable. You need to be making around $110,000 a year. That's not from some random blog. That's from cost of living studies using Bureau of Labor Statistics data. $110,000 per year, just to be comfortable, solo. Now here's what makes that number insane. The median household income in Miami, meaning the middle of the range, not the bottom, the actual middle, is about $57,000 to $59,000 a year. Now that's what the census data says. So the city requires almost double what the average Miami family makes just to not feel financially stressed every single month. Let me make that even more real. The average one-bedroom apartment in Miami right now runs you somewhere between $2,186 and $2,743 a month, depending on what source you check and what neighborhood you're in. Brickell, you're looking at $3,500 plus, and that's after the market cooled down. That's the discount. Miami is one of the most expensive rental markets in the entire country. We beat out cities twice our size. And here's the stat that hit me hardest when I found it. Over half, more than half, of Miami-Dade residents have seriously considered leaving because of the cost of living. Not thought about it for a second. I seriously considered it. I have people I grew up with who moved all the way out to Homestead. Homestead. If you're from Miami, you know what that drive looks like on I-95 at 7 a.m. They didn't move because they wanted to. They moved because Miami priced them out of the city they were born in. That is not a random life outcome. That is a system doing exactly what it was built to do. Now let me connect something that most people are not connecting. Because you've been hearing about tariffs for months now. You've seen people arguing about it on Twitter. You've seen the news segments. You've seen the memes. But I want to break it down in a way that actually hits your wallet, not your political feelings. Tariffs are import taxes. When the government puts a tariff, a tax, on goods coming in from another country, the company importing those goods has to pay more to bring them in. Simple enough. But here's the part they don't say loudly enough. That company does not eat that cost. You do. Importers and consumers in the U.S. bear 96% of the tariff burden. That number comes from the Kiel Institute for the World Economy. 96%. So when somebody tells you foreign countries are paying for this, that's not what the data says. You're paying for it at the register. Now let's talk specific numbers, because I need you to feel this. Clothing is up 14% compared to before the tariffs hit. If you bought a $100 jacket last year, that same jacket is $114 now and the quality didn't change. Household goods, your cleaning supplies, your toilet paper, your basics, up 5%. Furniture up 8%. Food prices rose at their fastest monthly rate in years by the end of 2025. Beef is up 16%. Coffee, and I know Miami runs on coffee, this one's personal. Coffee is up nearly 20%. 20% on coffee in Miami. That's basically a hate crime. Yale's budget lab ran the full analysis on what the 2025 tariffs are actually costing American households. For households in the middle of the income distribution, which is most of us, which is most people watching this, the annual loss in purchasing power is around $1,700 to $3,000, depending on how the numbers are calculated. Let's use the conservative end. $1,700 a year, gone, quietly, without anyone knocking on your door and saying, hey, we're taking this from you. And here's the thing about $1,700 that I want you to really sit with, because it's easy to hear a number and let it slide off. That $1,700 is not an abstraction. That's the emergency fund you were trying to build. That's the equipment for the business idea you've been sitting on. That's the flight to see family. That's the 3 months of investment contributions that would have compounded quietly in the background while you slept. It's gone. And nobody's making an apology for it. Now I want to be very clear about something before we go further, because I know how these conversations get twisted. This is not a political video. I don't care who you voted for. I'm not here to tell you left or right or any of that. I'm here to talk about what's actually happening to your money right now. What the data says, and, more importantly, what you can actually do about it. Because the biggest mistake I see people make is they find out about something like the tariff situation. They get angry about it online. They post about it. They argue with strangers in comment sections. And they go to bed that night in the exact same financial position they woke up in. Anger without action is just entertainment. And you can't afford for your outrage to just be content. Here's where I'm going to slow down and do something nobody else is doing for you. I'm going to actually show you the math. Pull up the calculator on your phone if you want to follow along. This is the math of a real Miami life that nobody sits down and does until they're already in the middle of it. Let's say you're making $57,000 a year. That's close to the median. That's not a bad salary in most of America. In Miami, after federal taxes, after Florida's 7% sales tax biting into everything you buy, let's call your take-home roughly $3,800 a month. Maybe $3,900 if you're lucky with your situation. Okay, so you've got $3,800. Rent. 1 bedroom in a decent area of Miami. Not luxury, not a shoebox in Hialeah you're scared to park in front of at night. Let's say $2,200. That is $2,200 of your $3,800. Gone before you do anything else. That's 58% of your take-home pay just for a roof. The recommended rule is 30%. You're already at 58 and we haven't bought a single thing yet. You have $1,600 left. Car payment. Miami has essentially no real public transit if you live outside of a 3-block radius of a metro rail stop. You need a car. The average car payment in America right now is $735 a month. Let's say you found something a little cheaper. $600. That's $600 out of your $1,600. You're at $1,000. Car insurance in Miami. And if you've ever paid car insurance in Miami, you already know what I'm about to say. Miami has some of the highest car insurance rates in the entire country. We're talking $200 to $300 a month for a normal car, normal driving record. Let's say $220. You're at $780. Gas. You're commuting because you live in Miami and everything is spread out. Conservative estimate, $150 a month. You're at $630. Groceries. You're not eating out. You're cooking at home. You're being responsible. $400 a month for one person, which is actually slightly under the Miami average right now. You're at $230. Phone bill, streaming services, just the basics. $100. You're at $130. Electric bill, Miami, summer. Air conditioning is not optional, it is survival. Average electric bill in Miami is $150 to $200 in summer months. Let's say $130 in a cheaper month. You are now at zero. Literally zero. And we haven't talked about a dentist. We haven't talked about a gym membership. We haven't talked about getting a haircut. We haven't talked about buying your mom something for her birthday. We haven't talked about anything that makes life feel like life. This is the math of Miami on a median income. And the tariffs just took $1,700 more out of that equation annually, which is about $140 a month. So where does that $140 come from? It doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from the $130 you had left, which means you now have negative $10 at the end of the month. That's not a personal failure. That's arithmetic. And here's what kills me about this. And I mean this genuinely. Here's what actually keeps me up at night thinking about people in my city. Most people doing this math, even if they could never put numbers to it, feel this every single month. That low-grade anxiety that never quite goes away. That feeling of being on a treadmill that's subtly speeding up while you're working the exact same speed, that feeling is real. It's not in your head. The numbers just proved it. So why doesn't everyone just make more money? Why doesn't everyone just get a better job, learn a skill, hustle harder? And look, I'm going to come back to solutions in a few minutes. Real ones. Not motivational poster stuff. But first I need to address why the just grind harder answer misses something important. Because it's not wrong, but it's incomplete in a way that can actually keep you stuck. Here's what I figured out after a long time thinking I just needed to work harder. The issue isn't just income. The issue is that most people are trying to solve a wealth problem with an income strategy. And those are different things. Completely different. Income is what you make. Wealth is what you keep, what you build. What keeps making money when you're asleep or when you're sick or when you get tired. And here's the uncomfortable truth that took me too long to learn. You can grow your income significantly. And if your mindset around money doesn't change at the same time, you will just grow your expenses to match. Every time. There's a term for this. Lifestyle inflation. Every raise, every come up, every new level of money, most people unconsciously upgrade their life to consume it. New apartment, new car, new watch, new going out budget. And 6 months later, they're just as tight as before, just with nicer stuff and a higher anxiety ceiling. I watched this happen to people around me in Miami over and over again. Dudes getting real money, and real opportunities. And 3 years later, they're right back at zero because the money came in and the spending evolved immediately to absorb it. Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, ran the most powerful empire on earth, had access to unlimited wealth, wrote something in his private journal that I keep coming back to. He said, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Now I know that sounds like something your grandma stitches on a pillow. But hold on, because when I actually sat with that, it changed how I read my own situation. He wasn't saying be poor. He wasn't saying don't make money. He was saying the person who keeps running out of money despite making decent money, they don't have an income problem. They have a wants problem. And their wants always expand to slightly exceed whatever they make. And in a city like Miami, where the culture is beautiful people, beautiful cars, bottles at the club, looks at the beach, Instagram highlight reels of people's best moments, you are swimming in an environment that is constantly manufacturing new wants. That's not an accident. Every ad you see, every influencer you follow, every vibe you consume, it is all in the business of making you feel like you need something you didn't need 5 minutes ago. Your environment is not neutral. Miami is stunning. I love this city. But Miami is also extremely good at making you feel behind if you don't have the right things. And the right things are always just slightly above wherever you currently are. That's the trap inside the trap. Okay, here's what I actually did differently. And again, not the YouTube version, the real version. First thing I changed was I stopped consuming and started calculating. I sat down one weekend. I'm talking a Saturday, no plans, just me and a piece of paper. And I wrote out every single dollar that was leaving my hands every month. Not in an app, not in a spreadsheet, on paper. Because there's something about writing it down by hand that makes it real in a way a screen doesn't. And what I found when I did that was genuinely uncomfortable. I didn't have one big, obvious money leak. I had 20 small ones. Each one looked totally reasonable in isolation. Combined, they were bleeding me out. There's a Stoic practice called negative visualization. It's where you sit quietly and you seriously, deliberately imagine losing the things you have. Your income, your housing, your stability. Not to be depressing. It's not a depression exercise. It's a clarity exercise. Because when you vividly imagine what losing something would feel like, you suddenly see how close to the edge you actually are. And that clarity, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable, is the thing that moves you. When I did that with my finances, I realized I was living with a much smaller margin than I had let myself admit. And that realization didn't paralyze me. It made me start making actual decisions instead of just hoping things would work out. Second thing, I changed what I was studying. I stopped watching how to make $10,000 a month videos. Not because every one of them is fake. Some people are genuinely building real things. But I realized I was trying to copy tactics before I had the foundation. It's like trying to run plays before you understand the game. You look like you're doing something, but nothing is actually building. So I went back, way back. Morgan Housel's Psychology of Money. If you haven't read that book, stop what you're doing after this video. It's not a finance book. It's a book about how human beings actually behave around money versus how we think we do. Marcus Aurelius's Meditations. Napoleon Hill. People who had thought deeply about this, not just people who got lucky or had a good year and made a course about it. And one thing I read that I could not stop thinking about. Housel writes about how wealth is what you don't see. The fancy car, like the clothes, the jewelry, that's not wealth. That's wealth that's already been spent. Real wealth is the investments nobody knows about, the account that's been building quietly for 7 years, the skill you've been sharpening that nobody was watching. Real wealth is invisible. And in Miami, in a city this obsessed with visibility, that's the most countercultural idea I've ever encountered. Third thing, and this is the one that actually changes the math long term. I started building something that wasn't just trading my time for money. Here's the brutal truth about working for somebody else in an economy like this one. Your income is capped by what they think you're worth, adjusted upward by maybe 3% a year if you're performing well. Meanwhile, your rent went up 12%. Your groceries went up 5 to 14% depending on what you're buying. Your insurance went up. Everything went up faster than that 3%. You cannot work your way out of that gap by just working harder inside the same structure. The math doesn't allow it. The people I've watched quietly build something real in Miami. And they exist. They're around us. You probably know a few of them. They all have something they built, an extra income stream, a skill they monetized on the side, something they own a piece of, something that generates money not directly tied to how many hours they physically work that week. It doesn't need to be a startup. It doesn't need to be flashy, but it needs to be yours. Because the only way to win against a system that's designed to keep your income barely above your expenses is to play a different game than the one they designed for you. Let me show you what the difference looks like. Not in theory. In two real people making identical salaries in identical situations. Person A hears about the tariffs, gets mad online, posts about it. Feels validated when people agree. Gets back to their day. In 6 months, same situation. Maybe slightly worse because the prices kept going up. Person B hears about the tariffs. First reaction is also frustration. That's human. But then person B asks one different question. Okay, given that this is real and this isn't going away immediately, what does this mean for my specific spending? And what can I actually control? Person B cuts 2 subscriptions they forgot they had. Redirects $60 a month into an index fund. Starts learning one skill that could add a second income stream. In 3 years, person B and person A are in completely different places. Not because of luck or talent, but because of one different question asked in response to the same information. Person A sees rent is up again in Miami. Complains to friends. Considers moving but does nothing. Renews lease at the higher price. Person B sees rent is up. Starts researching whether splitting a place with one roommate for 18 months while stacking cash could put them in a position to actually buy something. Runs the actual numbers. Makes a decision based on math, not emotion. Person A scrolls personal finance content for 2 hours every week. Or feels motivated. Learns nothing that actually changes their behavior. Person B reads 1 chapter of one good book per week. Implements 1 thing per month. In a year, they've made 12 real changes. Small ones, but compounded. Same city, same economy, same tariffs, same cost of living. Completely different outcome in 5 years. The difference is never the circumstances. It's always the response to the circumstances. Marcus Aurelius wrote, and remember, this man was running an empire during plagues and wars and economic pressures that would break most people. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. The obstacle is the way." Miami's expensive. That's the obstacle. The obstacle becomes the reason to think differently, move smarter, build something you own. You miss the tariffs are taking money out of your pocket? That's the obstacle. The obstacle forces you to plug leaks, reduce waste, redirect resources more intentionally. Every generation has its version of this. Every generation has a reason to give up and blame the conditions. And in every generation, some people look at the exact same conditions and quietly, stubbornly build something anyway. I am not going to be the person who let the conditions decide my outcome. And if you're still watching this, 16, 17 minutes in, I don't think you are either. So I'm going to leave you with this. The economy is real. The Miami rent is real. The tariffs are real. I'm not one of those people who's going to tell you that if you just fix your mindset, everything gets easy. That's what people say when they've never actually felt the math we walked through today pressing down on them every single month. But I will tell you this with everything I've learned in 27 years of being alive in this city. The information exists. The tools exist. The path exists. For the first time in history, you can literally learn anything you need to learn, build almost anything you can think of, and reach people anywhere in the world. From your phone right now, for free. The people who are going to win in this economy are not going to be the ones who were born into the right situation. They're going to be the ones who got honest with themselves about where they actually were, stopped letting the noise keep them comfortable and distracted, and started making deliberate decisions. One at a time. I compounded over years. That's it. That's the whole secret. It's not sexy. There's no hack. Marcus Aurelius woke up every single morning in the most powerful seat in the known world and still wrote in his journal about discipline, about focus, about not letting what was outside him decide what was inside him. He wasn't doing that because it was easy. He was doing it because it was the only thing that actually worked. That's the energy I'm building on. My name is Jonathan. I'm 27. I'm from Miami. I've done the math on this city and I refuse to let it be my ceiling. If that resonates with you, if any part of what I said today made something click, subscribe. Because this channel is for people who are in their broke era and are actively, stubbornly refusing to stay there. I'll see you in the next one.